Chapter 699, Thrilling Heaven and Earth Altar. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. When it came in contact with the aura of the Sword Soul Hailstone, Zhang Yuoquan's heart of the sword began vibrating violently. It's really an amazing treasure. Zhang Yuoquan suppressed the heart of the sword and put it into the chest containing the Sword Soul Hailstone. The Sword Soul Hailstone was indeed a good thing. However, it would play the most valuable role when used in the most effective way. Therefore, he determined that he would not use the Sword Soul Hailstone until he broke through to the third realm of Sword 2. The third realm of Sword 2 was called Separation of Yin and Yang. This was another obstacle with a great degree of difficulty. So, it would not be easy to surmount. When he was young, the Moonbreaker Sword Saint had been a splendid genius in Tao of the Sword. At the Fish Dragon realm, he had encountered an impasse. He had not broken through for 6 years. Zhang Yuoquan was not eager to break through to the third realm of Sword 2. Instead, he was ready to break through to the sixth change of the Fish Dragon realm. Meanwhile, he would spend some time consolidating the second realm. He had not displayed genuine Qi or holy Qi when he competed with Qifu today. As a result, he had defeated Qifu. However, the Sword Technique Conference would not be just a simple sword contest. Actually, it would be a contest of true strength. At present, Zhang Yuoquan was at the fifth change in the Fish Dragon realm. Even if he confronted Qifu, he would lose more than win. And besides, he would face the most outstanding talents in the Kunlun's field during the Sword Technique Conference. Some of them were comparable to Gai Tanjiao. If he could not improve his cultivation, how could he contend with them? Just when he was refining his genuine Qi in preparation for breaking through to the sixth change of the Fish Dragon realm, the news that he would contend with Qifu spread like wildfire over the entire Yin and Yang sect. The name Lin Yue had finally reached the ears of all the Yin and Yang sect half-saints and saint patriarchs. In a secret cave, 3 half-saint elders of the Qiz and Qifu gathered together to negotiate in secret. Qi Hong was murderous with rage. Lin Yue has an awesome gift for Tao of the Sword. If we let him improve constantly, he'll definitely affect our demonic sect's plan. I'll kill him secretly. That's the safest way. Qifu shook her head and said, Lin Yue isn't the one before. He may be a pawn, placed in the Yin and Yang sect by other forces. He may not be representing the Yin and Yang sect in the Sword Technique Conference. Do you mean that Lin Yue just wants to improve his cultivation in Tao of the Sword by using the Sword Pavilion resources? He may not be handling affairs for the Yin and Yang sect? Asked a red-faced half-saint from the Qiz. It's hard to say. Qifu shook her head lightly and said, I just think that it's a pity to kill a genius like him in secret. If we can bring him under control, he'll be our trump card. Qi Hong snorted in outrage and said, Fen, you're too young and irresolute. If a man can't work for us, the more talented he is, the sooner he should die. You can stop intervening in this matter. I'll take full charge of it. Lin Yue must die before the Sword Technique Conference. As a saintess, Qifu had great power, and she could mobilize a lot of manpower and financial resources. She was not, however, qualified to command the half-saints. Unless she broke through to the half-saint realm, she could not command the half-saints. Therefore, when Qi Hong determined to kill Lin Yue, Qifu did not put forward an objection, even though she thought it was wrong. Zhang Yuoquan secluded himself for refining for 2 months in the first floor of the Sword Pavilion. He finally solidified his cultivation at the fifth change in the Fish Dragon realm. And then, he spent half a month in opening up the third Holy Meridian of the Yin. As a result, he broke through to the sixth change of the Fish Dragon realm. He mobilized the genuine Qi in his Qi Si to the meridians in his left arm. The genuine Qi in the meridians suddenly turned into Holy Meridian of the Yin and then Holy Qi, which doubled the power in his left arm. With his current cultivation, he became a first-class master, comparable to a saintly being at the ninth change in the Fish Dragon realm. With my current cultivation, I should be able to take care of business. Zhang Yuoquan came to the Yin and Yang sect mainly to investigate the secrets of the Heaven and Earth altar. The time had not been ripe, so he had not dared to act rashly. But now, a lot of monks entered the Sword Pavilion. The quiet place was filled with people both good and bad. Sword holders of the Sword Pavilion, represented by the Moonbreaker Sword Saint, directed most of their attention to the Kiz. Their monitoring of the sword pavilion would probably suffer. Now was the best time for Jiang Yuochen to take action. Jiang Yuochen released Blackie from the scroll world and whispered, "The altar outside the sword pavilion has an entrance that goes underground. Tonight, we'll go there to explore." He put on the shooting star invisible cloak and immediately disappeared. And then, he left the seclusion house and charged to the altar in the center of the square. Blackie shrank rapidly and became as small as an ant. Like a black dot, he jumped quickly and flew to the top of the altar ahead of Jiang Yuochen. Blackie had made notable achievements in the array, so he had started to research the inscriptions of array on the altar without being asked. Soon, he found some clues. He said, "It turns out that something is wrong. The inscriptions on the altar are very similar to those on the heaven and earth altar we discovered in the battlefield of Primitive World. If I am guessing right, what we see now is only the tip of the iceberg. The true body of the altar may be hidden underground." "The true body is underground?" Jiang Yuochen looked at the place under the altar. Jiang Yuochen released Space Domain to cover the altar to explore. A quarter of an hour later, he finally found an entrance leading underground in the northeast corner. Its location was secret. It was not only sealed with huge jade stones, but also defended with an array. Thus, ordinary people could not find it. Jiang Yuochen put his hands on the jade stone wall, channeled holy chi into it, and abruptly pressed forward. Swoosh! On the surface of the wall, white light radiated and countered his power. Jiang Yuochen slipped back more than 30 meters before he found his footing again. "How can you break the array by using brute force? Let me open it." Blackie alighted on the jade stone wall and used black light from his claws to carve on it. As a result, some of the inscriptions of array changed. Blackie clapped his paws and chuckled. "Open." The wall slowly moved and sank underground, leaving an entrance big enough for only a single man. Jiang Yuochen nimbly moved his body and immediately went in. Boom! The jade stone gate had closed again. Jiang Yuochen and Blackie went forward cautiously along stone steps descending underground. They pulled in their auras to an extreme. 1, 2, 3, 4. Jiang Yuochen deliberately counted every step. He wondered where they had arrived. When they went down about 30,000 steps, Jiang Yuochen stopped and said, "We've gone downward about 9,000 meters. Right now, we should have arrived at the top of the second-level mountain." "Does the altar lead to the foot of Ancient Gods Mountain?" Each of the 7 mountains of the Ancient Gods Mountain was 9,000 meters high. They were 63,000 meters high in total. If the altar had really been built from the foot of Ancient Gods Mountain to the peak of third-level mountain, it would be 20,000 to 30,000 meters high. It was terrifying to think about an altar so tall. The deeper he went, the more terrified he felt. Why had the Yin and Yang sect emptied the first 3 mountains of the Ancient Gods Mountain to build such a huge altar? Was it Kai Yao who ordered the construction of the Heaven and Earth altar, hoping to refine the entirety of Kunlun's field? The channel was made of jade stones and inlaid with spiritual crystals at some important positions. Blackie kept on studying the inscriptions and finally found the result. Gravely, he said, "Perhaps something really big is going to happen in the Kunlun's field." "Why?" Jiang Yuochen asked solemnly. Blackie said, "The inscriptions on the altar are exactly the same as those on those altars in the battlefield of Primitive World, except even more complex and powerful. I'm sure that it must be related to the imperial court of the First Central Empire. The altar is connected with the Holy Meridian inside the Yin and Yang sect's land. It could extract Holy Chi from the Holy Meridian at any time to provide energy for the altar. The Holy Meridian inside the Yin and Yang sect's land ran through the entire eastern region. Once the altar built by the Yin and Yang sect began to work, it would generate formidable power. The entire eastern region would be involved. Even more agitating was that the altar was also connected with those in the Primitive World outside the Kunlun's field to form a heaven and earth array. Similar heaven and earth altars must have been built in the central, northern, southern, and western regions of Kunlun's field. All of a sudden, Jiang Yuochen detected someone's arrival. He immediately caught Blackie and covered him with the shooting star invisible cloak. "Data!" The sound of footsteps got closer. A familiar voice came from the channel in the distance. "Master Ning, The Heaven and Earth altar has been under construction for 500 years. It has dragged on far too long. How can I slight the Empress's order? However, I don't know why Her Majesty wants to build this Heaven and Earth altar. Someone answered with an old voice. You'd better not ask something you shouldn't. Remember that the Yin and Yang sect could become the leader of all sects in the eastern region within 500 years through her command. Likewise, she could make it fall into chaos. It was the voice of a saint lady. Would she discover Zhang Yuochen right next to her, hiding in the shooting star invisible cloak? He was uncertain. Even if he wanted to escape, it would be to no avail. They got closer and closer and Zhang Yuochen grew paler and paler. He immediately controlled his heartbeat, held his breath, and pulled in his aura.